These cops shaved their heads live on camera to save a kid's life. And this other one made an elderly woman cry after doing something totally unexpected. That's what happens when amazing officers show a little kindness. It all started on a day when an entire police department stopped their work just to escort a 5-year-old boy. His name was Dakota Pitts, and just a few days earlier, his dad had made him a promise to take him to school on his very first day. Sadly, that promise couldn't be kept. Dakota's father, Officer Rob Pitts, lost his life in the line of duty, and the little boy was left heartbroken with no excitement about going to school anymore. But then something truly incredible happened. When that big day finally came, all of Rob's fellow officers showed up at Dakota's house and walked with him the whole way to school. The moment was absolutely moving, and at the end, the SWAT team gave Dakota his father's shirt and badge, a powerful reminder of the respect and love they had for him. It's a day Dakota will never forget. Just like this little girl who got emotional when a heroic cop lay down on the ground to play dolls with her. For the sweetest reason, the beautiful moment was captured by a mom from South Hill, Virginia, named Isha Roper Boswell. According to her, the kids in her neighborhood were pretty scared of the police, including her own children. But everything changed after a gas leak happened nearby. The officers acted quickly to keep all the families safe and fix the problem before it turned into a tragedy. But Officer Fleming from the local department went even further. As soon as he noticed the kids were frightened, he made sure to talk to them until they felt safe again. And to make the moment even more special, he actually laid down on the ground and played dolls with Roper Boswell's daughter. After that, you can bet those kids lost their fear of the police. This cop completely shocked an elderly woman after doing something totally unexpected. Everyone knows police work is one of the toughest and most dangerous jobs out there, so it's easy to assume officers are always way too busy. This cop proved that when it comes to helping someone in need, the police are never too busy. Here's what he did. But sometimes all it takes for an officer to make someone's day is simply offering them a ride. And honestly, the best part was seeing the smile on that woman's face. She was so surprised by the officer's kind gesture that she just couldn't stop smiling. But in this case, a police officer had to race against time to save a baby with autism. It all happened when a couple from Fort Wayne, Indiana, called the police in a panic to report their missing son. Officers immediately began searching for the boy until one of them heard a baby crying in a nearby backyard. But what he saw when he got there was absolutely terrifying. The little boy had fallen into a swimming pool and, with no one around to help, was just moments away from losing his life. Thankfully, that officer arrived just in time to pull him out and save him. You can only imagine the relief his parents must have felt seeing their son return home safe and sound. In this other case, an officer had to save a child from her own father. It all happened when police in Cobb County, Georgia got a shocking call. A woman had phoned in after spotting 2 kids locked inside a car while it was nearly 117 degrees outside. And to make matters worse, that car had already been sitting there for almost an hour. Officers had to act fast to rescue those 4 innocent children. Right after smashing the driver's side window carefully so the little ones wouldn't get hurt, the officer immediately pulled the kids out and made sure they were safe. Thankfully, both children were okay. But things didn't end so well for their father, Jaquan Dixon, who ended up in jail and had to post a $10,000 bond. What happened to this baby is every mother's worst nightmare. It all started when police in Little Rock, Arkansas got a call from a mother in complete panic. Her 8-month-old baby had stopped breathing, and no matter how hard she tried, nothing seemed to work. That's when Officer Faircloth, who was nearby, rushed to the scene. By the time he arrived, the baby was already unconscious, and that's when he performed what can only be described as a miracle. Did he swallow anything? You can see the tension in the video. The officer is clearly doing everything he can to save that child. Thankfully, his efforts paid off. Just a short while later, the baby started breathing again and, with medical care, made a full recovery. But that wasn't the only time something like this happened. In another case, a police officer had to fight to save the life of a newborn baby, just 5 days old. It all happened shortly after Officer Nate Aldsworth had recovered from a car accident himself. As soon as he heard what was going on, he rushed to the scene and was met with a terrifying sight. The baby's mother was sitting on the ground next to her newborn, completely hysterical, and the poor little one's lips had already turned blue from lack of oxygen. But in the middle of that desperate situation, Nate showed just what an incredible officer he is. He jumped into action right away, and after making sure there was no obstruction, he began performing CPR. And to everyone's relief, it didn't take long before the maneuver worked. The baby opened his eyes. Thank God, after being checked by paramedics, that newborn made a full recovery and was back in his mother's arms. Just like this video where a traffic stop for speeding ended up turning a cop into a hero. It all started when a sheriff pulled over a car for speeding, what seemed like a routine stop, but in reality, the family inside was in a panic, rushing to the hospital because their newborn baby was choking and couldn't breathe. The sheriff quickly took the baby in his arms and, for 4 long minutes, massaged her tiny heart while talking to her, trying to get her to breathe again. Moments later, a fire truck arrived and the rescue team took over. The baby was rushed to the hospital, and thankfully, she's now back home, completely recovered. This Florida police officer lived through a moment of pure heroism that left everyone breathless. The truth is, being a cop means facing unpredictable and dangerous situations at any given moment. But this sergeant proved that courage and compassion go hand in hand when it comes to saving lives. It all started when a motorcycle sped by and crashed into a car. The impact was so violent that the motorcyclist didn't survive, but inside the car were a mother and her 2 young children, trapped and terrified. That's when Sergeant Dave Musgrove jumped into action. He managed to rescue a little 3-year-old girl and right after, freed a 6-month-old baby. But there was one terrifying detail. The baby wasn't breathing, and that's where the most emotional part comes in. With complete focus and determination, the officer began chest compressions until he finally heard the most beautiful sound of all, the baby breathing again. A true miracle made possible by the heroic actions of a police officer who didn't hesitate to risk everything to save 2 precious lives. This cop left an entire family in total disbelief over what they had just witnessed. Saving lives is without a doubt one of the toughest missions out there, but this officer proved that when someone's in danger, the police will always find a way to step in at just the right time. Here's what happened. Just before 11 at night, a 3-week-old baby choked on her bottle and stopped breathing. Panicked, the family rushed out looking for help, and that's when Officer Cameron Maksajewski arrived. With incredible calm, he took the baby in his arms and started performing back compressions. And within seconds, the impossible happened. The baby coughed, cleared her airway, and started crying again to everyone's relief. Sometimes all it takes to save a life is the composure and courage of a police officer who doesn't think twice about acting. And without a doubt, the best part was seeing the pure relief on the family's faces. Something they'll never forget from that heroic moment. But what these police officers did for a little boy will honestly bring you to tears. This is little Quinn Waters, and he's been facing a tough battle with cancer. Sadly, because of chemotherapy, he ended up losing his hair. But the officers in his town came up with a brilliant idea to cheer him up and show that he's not fighting this battle alone. Men, women, rookies, and even veteran cops from Quincy all gathered at a barbershop and shaved their heads. They did it all to support the mighty Quinn, as the community lovingly started calling him. And it didn't stop there. The heartwarming event also raised over $20,000, which was donated to the St. Baldrick's Foundation to help fund research on childhood cancer. Amazing, right? These police officers from Southwest Florida left everyone emotional with an unbelievable act of courage. It all started when a house in Cape Coral caught fire, trapping a couple inside along with their 2 dogs. Body cam footage shows the officers arriving and finding massive flames consuming the home. Thankfully, the wife managed to get out through the garage, but her husband's situation was much more complicated. He was in a wheelchair and couldn't escape on his own. That's when the bravery of these officers really shined. They took turns using fire extinguishers, trying to control the flames while figuring out the best way to get the man out. With the help of a good Samaritan, they finally managed to rescue him safely, and it didn't stop there. The dogs were also saved, and everyone made it out unharmed. Moments later, firefighters arrived to fully put out the blaze. Without a doubt, this couple will always be grateful for the incredible work those officers did. But in this case, a police officer had to race against time to save a 12-year-old boy. It all happened when a woman frantically called police in Warren, Michigan, saying the boy had been in the hotel pool and wasn't breathing. Officer Jacob Brooklier, who was already at the hotel on another call, immediately rushed to the scene. What he found was absolutely terrifying. The boy was lying on the ground, unconscious, while people around were desperately trying to revive him. Without hesitation, the officer took control of the situation, placed the boy in the right position for CPR, and began chest compressions. For 2 crucial minutes, Brooklier stayed focused and refused to give up, coordinating with bystanders and communicating with firefighters as they arrived. Then came the moment of relief. The boy regained a pulse just as firefighters got there to rush him to the hospital. You can only imagine how incredibly relieved his family must have felt seeing their son safe again. What happened to this baby is every family's worst nightmare. It all began when police in Doral, Florida got a desperate call. A 2-year-old girl had fallen into a pool and wasn't breathing. That's when Officer Johan Gallo, himself a father of 2, rushed to the little girl. With incredible determination, he struck her on the back and turned her over, performing chest compressions without losing hope for even a second. The tension was overwhelming. Everyone feared the worst. But then, a true miracle happened. Little Keelannis started breathing again. She was immediately taken to an emergency vehicle where paramedics continued working to stabilize her. Thanks to the officer's courage and the quick medical response, the girl survived, and her family later had an emotional reunion with the heroes who saved her life. In this next case, police had to race against time to save a child from a monster. It all started when Atlanta police received a desperate call from a mother. She had parked her car in a lot, and after stepping out for just a moment, left the keys and her 9-year-old son inside. Out of nowhere, a stranger jumped into the car and sped off, taking the boy with him. That's when city officers, along with state and local teams, rushed into action to track down the vehicle and rescue the child. Body cam footage shows the tension as officers did everything they could to save the boy. Thankfully, police managed to rescue him safely. In the end, the suspect, 38-year-old Darius White, was arrested and charged with kidnapping, child cruelty, and theft.